Hi guys, I'm Myra with Atomic Baby Cosplay, and today I'm going to talk about my top 5 tips for getting a great fit. So we all know that it can be really challenging to get a really great fit when you're making something from scratch, especially if you're a newer sewer. It can be very challenging to get that to fit properly. So I'm here to give you my top tips for getting that great fit. Tip number 1 is going to be to measure your pattern pieces. So sometimes patterns aren't always truthful, so they'll have their measurements on the pattern packaging or sometimes on the pattern inside the packaging, but they're not always 100% accurate. So I definitely encourage you to measure your pattern pieces when you're going to cut out your pattern to make your cosplay. So measure across any of the major fit areas, so bust, waist, and hips are the most common ones, but if you have a body that's shaped differently, you might want to try measuring across areas where you're concerned it might not fit you as well. Make sure that you include the seam allowance, so think about each seam and that each pattern piece you're going to need to take that seam allowance off on either side if it's going to be sewn together. You also want to make sure you're adding in all of your seam pieces. So if you have, say, a center front, 2 side fronts, 2 side backs, and 2 center backs, you need to be thinking about all those seams and all those seam allowances coming off, plus all of those laid out together to create what the end size is going to be. Tip number 2 is to iron everything. First, you should be pre-washing all of your fabric and then ironing that fabric when you're done before you cut out your pattern. You should also iron your pattern itself because when they come out of that packaging, they can be all crinkled and wrinkled and have all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So iron your pattern pieces and iron your fabric, and then you're going to get a really precise cut. And on that note, tip number 3 is precision. Make sure that you work really carefully. The better you can work with the pattern, the better your fit is going to be. If you're able to be really meticulous about making sure all your pattern pieces are lined up and pinned together perfectly, that you've cut your pattern pieces out perfectly, everything's been ironed so you know that it's super accurate, you're going to have your best shot at getting that to fit perfectly right out the gate. Tip number 4, though, is to make a mock-up. If you have edited your pattern in any way, and even if you haven't, honestly, you should make a mock-up. You can make mock-ups out of muslin, but you can also use sheets from Goodwill or things like that. Literally any fabric that is similar to this fabric you're going to cut your main dress out of. I usually use muslin to make my mock-ups, but you can use all kinds of different things. The only thing that's really important is if you're going to make a mock-up of something you want to make in a stretchy material, you should also make your mock-up in a stretchy material because you don't want to find out that it doesn't stretch and you can't really get a good fit that way. So if you're trying to make, say, a bodysuit made out of spandex, if you make your mock-up out of muslin, you won't be able to actually get it on your body to see if that mock-up will even fit you. So make sure you make it out of the same type of material that you're going to make your final product out of. Once you have your mock-up fitting the way that you want to have your mock-up fit, you can go ahead and rip all the seams out, and you're going to use that as your pattern when you cut out the pattern pieces out of the real fabric. That way you're making sure you're getting the same fit that you got when you made your mock-up, right? And bonus tip is to save those pattern pieces you made for your mock-up because you can re-sew them and use them as your lining potentially, and then you've got kind of that step already taken care of. And lastly, tip number 5 is to use a dress form. Dress forms are not always within everyone's budget, and I totally get that. You can also make a dress form by wrapping yourself in cellophane or like plastic wrap, and then you can take duct tape and wrap that around the plastic wrap and then have someone help you and gently cut up the back and then stuff it and re-duct tape it together, and you'll have a dress form that's specifically your shape. A lot of times you can also find dress forms on sale, especially around Black Friday and things like that, for under $100, and then you can get an adjustable one, which means you can do commissions and things like that, or at least make costumes for people who are not you. I love having a dress form. I find it really easy to be able to put something on the dress form, adjust it to my measurements, and then be able to kind of see and pin things exactly as I need to be able to get them on and off of my body and know that they're going to fit me. If you liked watching this video, definitely click subscribe. I do videos every Tuesday and Thursday. They are always on sewing or cosplay topics. And then lastly, we have a free sewing community over on Facebook called Fellowship of the Seam. I'd love to have you be a part of it. I will leave a link in the description box down below. And that's all. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.